All right. So yes, like I said, I could sit here and go over these effects all day. I mean, some of them are interesting. Oh, this is so funny. Okay, this is like just straight up jacked. I did a remix for my friend Mark in Seattle, and this is a part. You can't even hear it in the track. I don't know what I was thinking. I just wanted to play. I don't know. I threw it in there, and I like it. This is. Don't sue me, Mark. This is.
Records on Earth. Talk about the origins of man. At a time when they walked alone.
Cool. Yes, so white noise, reversals, swells. It's so boring. I hate it. I hate it. But as you can see, I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 effects. All edited and touched up and used with different plugins on and then bust out and summed with stereo tool, a little bit of cleanup EQ, a little bit of final cleanup EQ. So that's essentially all the effects. Like I said, to me, I don't like doing them, but ever since I started, I took a few lessons from Alan Morrow, and I've talked about him on the show. It's not exactly the show; it's just basically me just rattling off. I've talked about Alan Morrow a bunch of times. He's a damn good producer, man, and he's a Logic guy, and he really encouraged me to be less lazy with my effects. Not that I was ever like, not that I would ever phone it in. He just showed me in some of his finals how things look when they're done, and how big he gets them, and how like important the effects are throughout the whole track, and how much three-dimensionality is to be had from not just having like a couple and using them for accents or whatever, but to really get like a full aesthetic running through the track. So ever since then, I've been kind of upping my game when it comes to the effects. I think it's pretty essential. He's right. It's boring, but it's worth it. Okay, let's talk about incidentals, and then pretty much just cap this thing off. This is pretty much the long and short of this track. So I was saying earlier, like to me, recently, I think it's probably only been about the last 6 months. I've recently just decided that in my mind, in my music mind, in my world, there's a difference between effects and incidentals, okay? So effects, like I was talking about, is all that white noise, all the swoops and swooshes and kind of automated, kind of risers and downlifters, that sort of thing. Really, though, what I think is interesting, though, are the incidentals, and this is, to me, what sort of gives the track a lot of character. Now, there are a couple really simple incidentals. They're more percussion incidentals, right? Like I have my crash, which actually doesn't even sound that much like a crash. It's like more of a kind of white noise thing. Stab. Yeah, that's just kind of like a melodic. That's almost more of like a synth stab. I mean, it may very well have just been a synth that I rendered down and then used intermittently. Rev crashes into crashes. Okay, so reverse crashes into crash. Nothing new here. Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay, so this is worth covering. I just talked about this like a second ago. I was talking about using, like, literally abusing time correction algorithms. Certainly, like like I said, if you're making a track at 125 and the loopy one is at 130, then these time compression or elastic audio algorithms, they work great. I mean, it's something that we've had for since essentially the dawn of Ableton, and it's only gotten better. However, you can abuse these things. You can absolutely screw them over. So, for instance, this is the crash rendered down, reversed, and then stretched all to hell. And the reason that I stretched it all to hell, and you can see here in the flex time, the way that I've taken my warp markers and I've like stretched the hell out of the sample here, I can maybe even show you what the sample looked like originally. Yeah. So you can see that the audio is just starts here, kind of ends there. Now the audio kind of starts here, and everything in between gets like really ripped apart and stretched apart. And this is honestly one of those tricks that I'm like kind of a little bit, like, oh shit, maybe I should have just kind of glossed over that one because I don't want to start hearing other people doing it in their tracks. That's not like I'm not being shitty. It's just like, there's a few things that you kind of land on, that you work on, that you build, that are kind of uniquely. I mean, this is not unheard of, but if it started to come to like more and more popularity and fruition, I'd be like, damn it, I should never have said anything. But if you listen to the rev crashes, these are dope. Oh, it's so cool. He's so fucked off and pissed. I like doing that with a lot of things too. I do it with vocals. Like I'll take like the first word of a song. Like if the singer's going all or something, I'll take the all. I'll render it down so it's la or something like that, right? So it's like it kind of I'll turn it into a pre-lap by essentially flipping the waveform, and then I'll stretch the hell out of it so she goes all. Really, really cool textural stuff like that you can do with use and abuse, if you will, of time compression and expansion algorithms. Okay, so those are all sort of standard and boring incidentals, more rev crash, there's another stab or whatever. Let's talk really, really quickly about the vocal. Actually, let's do this real quick. Hit kit snares. This is one of my kind of like new cool like dyed in the wool, Chris Herrera tricks that I'm starting to use a lot, which is basically instead of a drum fill, I'll kind of like put in a couple hits. I'll put in a couple hits like this. Just a couple hits, right? And then I'll process the hell out of them. So to me, this isn't really a drum fill so much as it's like a kind of like a boomerang thing for my percussion. So let's just listen to what it's doing. Yeah, boom, bam, right? Without all the processing. Bump, bump, just 2 snare hits. Clean up EQ. Transient design for a little more attack on it. Space Designer is what really is going to give it some air, so let's listen with just the Space Designer. Yeah, which is cool. I think I might even have, I think I have some automation on the wet output. So yes, as you can see, this first hit right here, this hit right here, has a very, very low reverb, and then the second hit has a really, really high reverb, okay? Single band EQ to clean things up, L1 limiter just to kind of keep the signal even. I don't want things getting too renegade in terms of their dynamics. So once again, cool. Going to bus 2 for a little bit of verb. Let's listen to how this functions in the track. Or here. Love it. I love those things, and I've been using them quite a lot. Now it's always the same formula where I'm using just a couple snare hits, and then I'm changing it up. With the filters and sort of with the sends, and changing which plugins I'm using and which filter. Like I've been using filters more often for that, and distortion sends, little things where it just doesn't sound repetitious. Doesn't sound like, oh, he did that in the last track. But that has definitely become sort of a staple of my production in terms of like kind of prettying up or spicing up my overall percussion without having to just rely on fills. The vocal, Jim Morrison.
Bird of prey, flying high.
I think I just I'm a really big. I mean, I'm just a really big Doors fan, a really big Jim Morrison fan. He put out an album posthumously called An American Dream. I hope. I don't know. Basically, it was the rest of the Living Doors took a bunch of his poetry recordings and they took him in the studio, and they wrote all this beautiful music and some of the classic music, Doors music, around his poetry reading. So it's essentially a spoken word disc. It's really, really cool. But at one point, there's this track where he's just singing to himself, and I don't know if he was in the studio. He certainly wasn't on his iPhone. And he's just like, bird of prey flying high, gently pass on by. And he's just singing to himself. It's really, really cool. So, and it was just ripe for sampling. So I just snatched that, brought it in. As you can see, basically, here's the waveform. Like, I mean, that probably, you know, is a great chunk of the track right there. Then I just chopped it down and edited it and put it where I needed, you know?
Bird of prey, flying high, flying high,
Right, that's a cool trick right there. Let's see. Yep, that's my technique I was just talking about with the kind of use and abuse of the time expansion and compression algorithms. It also looks like I'm using AU pitch to kind of pitch it up. Let's see if it reflects here. Yeah, just a little pitch bend. This is pretty cool in the track because it's like it's got the little glitches that happen on the hi there, little glitches that happen on the master channel. Yeah, that's one I'm not going to cover. I'm not going to talk about how I did the little kind of glitch edits at the end of the phrases. That's one I'm not ready to spill the beans on yet, if you will. Okay. Yes, moving forward, that's the vocal. It's basically just right off the CD. Jim Morrison. You know, I don't want to get into some whole big thing about copyrights and licensing and stuff like that. Basically, I'll put it this way. I was comfortable using this sample because I know sort of the Doors value structure, and I can't, you know, I'm not going to be buying a new house off this or a new car off this track, you know, it's just as simple as that. So I have, and plus it's a very, very short sample, very intermittent sample. I think this is actually probably the very, very first time in my entire production career where I've actually done that, where I've actually like grabbed a sample of a popular singer or a popular anything. It just, I don't know. This is a weird song. It's a weird song for me, and I don't know exactly where it came from, and I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed the production of it, and I'm certainly pleased with how it came out, but it was not one of my calculated pieces by any stretch. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is the birds. Accipiter. Accipiter, if you didn't know, is a genus of a very, very predatory bird. Okay, so essentially, I'll spare you the story of it all. But originally the song was called "Good Bang," which is just whatever. It's a techno song. It bangs, whatever. Good Bang. Label had other ideas. They were very, very cool about it, and they made suggestions like, "Hey, why don't we find something better for this?" I'm like, "All right, cool." So we banged around a few things. Like "Bird of Prey" was one of them, not too interesting, kind of obvious. Then I came up with "Dive Bomb," which I like. "Dive Bomb," I thought that was good. Kind of aggressive. But then Accipiter, I thought that was really, really cool of them because it just kind of like it shows a little bit of their style and aesthetic, and it fits the track a lot better. So essentially, this song was about to be called "Good Bang." Now it's Accipiter. Obviously, we have that "Bird of Prey" sample from Jim Morrison, which I think obviously kind of implies this bird kind of aesthetic. I was talking about the Klopfgeist, this line being sort of a kind of a bird attacking, if you will. Coming in from the side. But what people don't necessarily realize about this track that I've talked to is a lot of the weird tweaky tones are actually bird noises that have been pitched up, pitched down, or just generally screwed over. So let's have a listen to some of them. Yeah, that's a bird noise. It's being sent off to a delay. Let's listen to it without the delay. right? Which is cool. So that's a bird. That's a vocal. Let's see what we got here. There's a bird, birdie. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a bird call. Bird call. It's a bird call. Reverbed out. Stereo tools. Single band EQ for cleanup. Just using these tones as incidentals to kind of like pepper in the track, just add little bits of flavor. You know, like I said, this was sort of like kind of a shoot from the hip type of thing. I didn't go into this saying like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make a bird song." You know, I even just the use of the Morrison sample was bizarre for me. That's very, very uncommon. The fact that he was, you know, going for this bird of prey style thing, and then the synths ended up sort of reflecting some of that, and then I ended up reaching for some of these bird sounds. I think that's one of the most exciting things and liberating things about being like an electronic producer. You know, certainly as a singer-songwriter, you know, I don't want to say limited, but you have things that function, things that work. You know, you have you and your guitar. Maybe you have some pedals, maybe you have some processing on the mic, but that's essentially it. If you're in a band, you can only get away with so much. Sometimes, you know, you're not going to bring bird noises into band practice typically and be like, "Hey guys, these are going to be cool." You know, but with making dance music or whatever, just the rich tapestry of audio that you could draw from and justify, or you not even have to explain to anybody. You don't have to answer to anybody. You just can like, I want that in there. It just becomes this stew, this conglomeration of different elements that end up in, you know, being bigger than the sum of their parts. So here's another bird noise. Here's another bird noise. Here's a bird noise. The bird. Here's birdie. Yeah, sounds like a white noise effect even. Birdie. Yeah, birdie. Birdie into birdie. More birdies. All kinds of birdies. All the birdies. Yeah, it's cool. I love it. This is, you know, just the combination of aesthetics in terms of, you know, this kind of like aggressive, predatory techno thing, like gosh, kind of thing, right? With like those little accents of the synths, the Jim Morrison sample, which is kind of mixed way back. It's very subliminal in its own way, and then all these bird treatments. That, as you can see, this was no small amount of work. This was no like trifle right here to get all of these incidentals, all these bird tones, to like function across the entirety of the track. So that, for the most part, is the track known as Accipiter by Chris Herrera. It came out on Wulfpack Records yesterday, 4/20/2020. And I just want to say thank you guys for checking it out. Thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this was of some interest to you. But this was fun to do. So I'm going to play you out a little bit here, and we'll catch you guys next time. All right, well, that's all you get. According to the computer, that's all you get. That's all I got time for anyway. Again, thank you guys for checking it out. I'm Chris Herrera. Go buy Accipiter. Go to Beatport. Chris Herrera, Accipiter. Buy records. You know, support independent people. You know, we've been at this. We've handed over our entire lives to this, and so it's a wonderful sharing of joy and art, and it's much appreciated when people give you some give you some feedback and give you some support and give you some investment. and just show how much they respect you and your time. And hopefully you enjoyed the song. Anyway, we'll catch you next time.